now it's our turn to, sorry for the words, but put our balls on the table.
Remember, kids, this is not how you play hockey. It's just ugly.
I like it.
Screw you guys. I'm going now.
You know what? I love ice cream too.
Go back to Canada, Guy Lafleur.
Game on!
Yeah, game on.
Hello and welcome into a playoff edition of the Hockey Show. Not a podcast, a hockey show. Here I am, JJ Jerez, your host. With me, of course, Ryan Bolding and Coach Bailey behind the glass, here to break down all things in the hockey world. I mean, what's more important in the hockey world right now than playoff hockey, Ryan? It's so exciting to be in playoff time. We're going to break all that down for you. We're going to talk all things playoff. I mean, that's what's weird about playoffs, right? I mean, all year long, we always have these storylines, more drama, more, I guess, TMZ-esque things to follow, where playoffs, it's all about results. It's all about the scores. It's all about who's home, who's away, who's winning. Really nothing more.
Last man standing.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we got Nick Cotsonika of NHL.com joining us later on in the show from Nashville. He's been sitting with us in the press box during the Colorado Avalanche Nashville Predators series, so he's very close in touch with it. And like I said, he's at Bridgestone Arena tonight, so he'll give us the update from what's going on over there. But first, we got to start the show like we start every show with matinee money. Ryan, of course, Florida Panthers are playing right now. That game started too early for us. I couldn't throw them into our matinee, so I'm sticking with the Avalanche as my matinee since we're playing here at 2:30. This is basically a pregame show, so leading up to it, I got my same game parlay for the Avalanche Predators. What I'm taking is Avalanche money line, Mikko Rantanen anytime goal scorer. He was off the goal sheet in the last game, put up 3 assists in game 1. I think he's due for a goal, and the Avalanche to score the first goal of the game. That's a plus 290. I like the odds on that same game parlay. I just love the way the Avalanche are playing right now.
Yeah, the only reason that I didn't put money on this is because I am concerned about the home crowd advantage for Nashville, but they may have, and we can talk about this later, taken their one shot here at the Avalanche. However, I decided it seems like there's a lot of gambling content out there where people just make picks and other people lose their money or win their money, and there's no accountability. So
that's like me with my matinee money picks. I think I went like 3 and the rest of them this year.
Yeah,
but
if you put your money on it, then it's not like a false claim, right? So
right.
I only list what I'm actually putting my own money on, and so today I went bold with the full slate parlay. I picked Florida, the Rangers, Colorado, and my wild card is Dallas over Calgary at plus 868.
That's an interesting pick for sure, but I see you here in your Jake Ottinger Otter t-shirt. For those watching, check it out. That's a winner right there. Ryan's the king of the novelty t-shirt. For those listening, thanks for listening. Thanks for hanging out. Let's get into the playoff hockey. I guess let's start with the simple conversation. How have the playoffs treated you so far? I mean, are you enjoying them? Have you been able to catch much of it? How has the broadcasting been for you? Give me Ryan Bolding's synopsis of the last week of the playoffs.
Oh, man, there's so much to talk about. There's so much room for activities here. I think I only took last night off, so I've seen bits and pieces of pretty much everything else going on. I guess I missed a great game out of Edmonton last night because they buried the Kings 8-2. I think everything's been good. I've mostly only seen games on ESPN, so I don't really have a TNT audio broadcast to go off of. Obviously, the Avalanche game the other night was on TNT, so anytime we looked up for a replay, we got TNT. Or altitude, I guess. I don't really know what we had. But I've heard complaints about ESPN's production quality. We all know altitude's production quality. Nobody in Denver can see it. But I think everybody kind of agrees that TNT's product is the better product on the whole. You know, the presentation is more involved. And you think Turner would want to make a splash because they haven't had the product before. So that's been impressive to me. But one thing I have to add is that, you know, if Avalanche fans are hungry for seeing the Avalanche in network, and there were some discrepancies with not being able to get ESPNU on Comcast the other night, but the Avalanche Predators game on TNT had 793,000 viewers on average. It was the most watched game in a late window for the first round, games 1 through 4 of a series on record. Avs fans are hungry for that television content.
Yeah, that's wild. I mean, looking at my own experience so far in the playoffs, I'm a little disappointed, and I guess it makes sense when you consider corporate America is what drives society, right? But here I am thinking I'm ready to go for the playoffs. What a great regular season it was. I got to watch so much on my ESPN Plus app. I got to catch everything. And now ESPN Plus doesn't offer the playoffs. You have to have actual ESPN to watch the playoffs, which I don't. I cut the cord a long time ago. I'm purely on internet television, like Sling TV, for example. And in my Sling TV package, I had the option to get ESPN, but there's only so many channels. You pick the other package that they offer. There's History Channel, which I love. You know, I love my Ancient Alien shows. There's Bravo, so I could keep my eye. HGTV on the real estate shows. So I didn't get ESPN.
Didn't even get to make an HGTV joke, Danny.
What was it?
I was just going to say, I'm sure you have it.
Oh, yeah. I love it. I watch it all the time. But no, for the first time, I feel bit in the behind by not having the ESPN. But, you know, I figured out ways to watch it anyway, but just had to jump through the same hoops as always. So nothing special. I do like the TNT because that is part of the Sling TV package. So TNT, I'm watching it all day. TBS, I like having them there too. So yeah, I've enjoyed it. What I want to get into now is the results that we've seen in the playoffs so far. Right, tonight is going to be Game 3 for everybody playing tonight, and the first round of Game 3s was yesterday. So essentially, 6 days into this playoffs, and what we've seen so far as in terms of results is a lot of widespread games. You're seeing a lot of 3-goal, 4-goal games. You've really only had about 4 close games. You could think of that Edmonton-LA Game 1, right? That was a fun one, a lot of goals. That one was exciting. You can look at the Preds Avalanche, and that one was decent. And then there's a couple more sprinkled in there. But I don't feel, you had the overtime with New York and Pittsburgh that you and I were watching from Ball Arena. There's not the close games. There's only been 2 overtimes, and everything else has been 5-2, 6-1, 4-0. We're seeing a lot of just discrepancy, which is crazy because you're also seeing only one series has a potential for a sweep, right? So all the series are basically 1-1, 2-1, but still every single game is turning out let's just read the scores from last night. 4-2, 5-2, 5-1, 8-2.
What was interesting to me is you saw, I think, a lot of, at least for me, games that I didn't think would go the way they did in Game 1 going that way. So teams that I didn't think would win. I'm regretting having picked Tampa over Toronto, which was kind of dumb, but it was a legacy pick, defending Cup champions. But some surprises, I think, in Game 1 there. And then the rebound in Game 2, right, where the team that probably should be winning the series came back and won in a pretty dominant fashion.
Like the Panthers, for example.
Yeah, I think the tide is starting to turn there a little bit. However, that's not totally the case. You obviously saw Nashville make a push. I think it's an interesting postseason, and maybe some teams are taking a little time to get their legs underneath them, and maybe there's a little bit of, full season fatigue like we've talked about, where you go from playing 50 games to 70 games to 82 games. It starts to feel like a long season.
Yeah, we saw the Avalanche kind of, I guess, manage that well, right? Down the stretch after the trade deadline. They weren't really playing their best hockey. They had a lot of guys resting, and now they're going at full steam. And I think a lot of the NHL might be looking at them and being like, shoot, we should have ran it that way. But they also had the luxury of being far and away.
First for a million miles.
Right. So what do you think has been the biggest surprise of the playoffs so far? Again, we're only through 6 games, not even a full series so far. But in this small handful of games, what shocked you? What did you not expect? What did you not see coming?
I mean, Toronto winning is, Mitch Marner scored his first playoff goal, I think, which is just wild to think he's gone that long without one. I just kind of underrated Toronto, I think. Florida, for as good as they've been, I don't know that Bobrovsky has been great in the playoffs, which is not a surprise, but it is a surprise given the way that team's played. And I think, Calgary, Dallas, the way that series is going, low scoring. Odger's given up 1 goal. It's wild.
Yep, that's my take. I think that's the biggest surprise is that series. I definitely saw Calgary coming out and running over the Dallas Stars. The fact that it's 1-1, low-scoring affairs, not surprised, I guess, but it's definitely interesting. Looking back at Toronto, why do you think you came into this counting them off? Was it goaltending? Was it what they've got between the ears? Was it pressure? What do you think you really attribute
Yeah, a little
that
bit
to?
of all of that. I don't think the goaltending's been fantastic for them all year. I think they've struggled. Historically, they've struggled in the postseason to score, to put it all together. You know, a little bit of that mentality of, will this be like last time? And I fully expect that from the Avalanche in round 2. I know that they're committed to winning the cup and being dominant, but there is going to be that voice in the back of your mind, like, could it happen again? And so for Toronto, going up against, like I said, the 2-time defending Stanley Cup champion here, like back-to-back winners, I expected a little more out of Tampa. They have the best goalie in the league, far and away. They've got a lot of firepower. So you kind of expect them to at least give Toronto a run for their money.
And they almost did there in game 2, right? Really led by Victor Hedman, which is like, all right, this is the Tampa Bay I expect to see for the rest of the playoffs. But maybe we just gave them a little bit too much credit throughout the year and heading into these playoffs that, eventually you're going to take a step back. I mean,
even as teams you don't see regularly, you know, it's really hard to project how they'll do.
Sure. And then with that, after the biggest surprise of the playoffs, what's been the biggest treat of the playoffs so far? Not exactly that it's been a surprise, but just like, give me more of this. I can watch this 7 days a week.
For me, I think Minnesota, St. Louis, that series. I mean, look, Joel Eriksson X stepping up and playing the way he did. He had a sick goal on his second goal the other night. He made a move in front of the net, waited out the goalie, took a step, and then put it in. Like, had a hat trick that was then called back for offside. Then Kirill Kaprizov, my guy, he scores a hat trick. Like, that series has about everything, but it looks like the Blues might be running afoul of some injuries that could really hurt them there.
Namely?
I mean, Bortuzzo, Justin Falk, Nick Leddy. We'll see. You know, guys are gamers. There's a lot of gamesmanship going on with coaches, with the media, as we've seen ourselves with Jared Bednar here, kind of refusing to reveal the lineups ahead of the game or any changes to the lineups, whereas John Hines has been pretty forthcoming about it. I think Carolina-Boston is a treat, and then New York-Pittsburgh, I think, is a treat. But just getting to see Shesterkin do work is incredible. Like, his, 79, 80 saves the other night, unbelievable.
That's how I feel about Marc-Andre Fleury. That's where my biggest treat was definitely out of that series, too, the Minnesota-St. Louis series. I just love what the matchup there, right? They're great competition for each other. I really think, and I hope that series goes to 7 games. But the best part about it is you feel like they're really beating each other up. Same thing in Calgary-Dallas. Calgary-Dallas has been physical, maybe a little bit boring as far as the hockey play goes.
Fights, though.
But the fights are there. So, again, beating each other up, heading into the second round, the Avalanche might be just coasting, especially if they can come out of this in 4 or 5 games, and they're going to be rested heading into it while these future opponents are just kicking the heck out of each other.
You say that now, and I can look it up maybe after I stop talking here, but the Avs and the Predators had 51 combined hits in the first period of Game 2. 51 hits in one period. So it's not like that series is like this soft skill game. It's also heavy.
Yep, absolutely. So that'll do it for our quick little look around the playoffs and what we've loved, what we haven't loved. And next we're going to break down in more detail the Avs-Predators series. And then, of course, like I mentioned, in segment number 3, we got Nick Cotsonika joining us from NHL.com. So stick around through the break. We'll be right back here on The Hockey Show. JJ Jerez, Ryan Bolding, Danny Bailey, Mile High Sports.
Right now, it's 16 minutes past the big hour. Is that not right, Mr. Scream? Great, good stuff. I think people are getting really cranked.
Danny with the summertime selection here.
I mean, it pretty much is, right? It was spring for 2 days, and now it's summer.
In Colorado, I'm always so hesitant to get excited about the summer or any good weather because, in 10 minutes it can easily be the opposite. Where next thing you know, it's going to be windy and 40 degrees outside. But no, we're here. We got good weather in Denver, an amazing weekend ahead, and what a perfect day for a matinee playoff game. I mean, it's going to be nice to not have to be up till 11:30 midnight watching hockey, right? So that's a plus, especially in my book. But no, just the way the Avalanche are playing, it's exciting stuff. Exciting, the pivotal Game 3, right? This can really make or break the Preds. They get a win here, they're back in this series. They get a loss, it's all but over but pretty much is. So I think Avalanche definitely looking for a sweep here, right? I mentioned earlier, no other series is looking at a sweep. Every other team has won at least a game. So I guess let's start by breaking that down. Do you think the Predators can or cannot get back in the series? Do they get swept? What do you predict? I
think they can get back in the series. I thought it might be game 2. I was thinking about it before coming over here. That game 2 felt a little bit like the Vegas series last year, where the Avalanche win a game handily, right? Then they win a game that they probably shouldn't have won, that Vegas outplayed them. Then Vegas wins, 2 games? Comes to Ball Arena, wins a game they shouldn't have won, and then ends up winning the series. Now, it's obviously not a direct correlation to this Nashville series, but it did start to feel like at the end of that game 2 that it could be a game that Nashville won on the back of really solid goaltending and not a lot of, lethality otherwise. And so I was getting a little vibe of that, and I think that if they can effort that same game at home with the last change, a better matchup for them, they may be able to pull this out. We've already been told that Ingram's starting. Saros won't play, even though, they kind of dangled that game 3 carrot at the beginning. I just think that there's a possibility Nashville can pull this off. As the most penalized team in the NHL in the regular season, they did not take many penalties until about the midpoint of the last game. So if they can really do what they did at the start there, I think they have a chance.
Yeah, as far as the penalties go, I mean, that's really what hurt them out of the gate in game 1, right? They got that early penalty, and Avalanche capitalized and then created the, for lack of a better term, avalanche of goals in that game 1.
They hit for the cycle in the first period. They had a power play goal, a shorthanded goal, and an even strength goal, before the 10-minute mark of the first period. It's demoralizing.
Yeah, exactly. And then with game 2, I'm with you. You definitely felt like the Avalanche had a ton of chances, right? I mean, they almost doubled. They were one shot away from doubling the shot on goal count. They had all the opportunities. They had missed backdoor chances. They had broken sticks.
102 shot attempts.
So it felt like all Nashville needed was to capitalize on one opportunity, and it was going to be a loss. But that was the other side of the spectrum, is they weren't able to generate any opportunities. They weren't getting to the net. They weren't making dangerous chances. So I think what you really saw from Nashville was them maybe figuring out a little bit on how to slow the Avalanche down defensively. I want to particularly point out the neutral zone. You really saw them stick 3 guys on the blue line and try to trap them more in the neutral zone and slow them down. I think it worked, right? I mean, that's one of the Avalanche's most dangerous weapons, is their zone entry and their ability to just buzz past you, get right to the net. So they said, let's eliminate that. Let's make them beat us with sustained pressure. They're going to have to dance around the offensive zone for a little bit to score a goal. So I think the Predators have maybe cracked a little bit of a code, but I just think the skill discrepancy is so big that I don't see them coming back.
The experience discrepancy is vast. I wrote about this for Colorado Hockey Now in my column this week, but the Avalanche are in this spot where they're a tight-knit team, but they're focused, and everybody knows that they have support in a situation, right? Whereas there was a lot of conversations on the off day between games 1 and 2 with the Predators about, the number of guys without much playoff experience, how you talk to them. Mark Borowiecki said there's a lot of inexperience. With that comes anxiety and stress, and so figuring out a way as a young player to accept that, adapt to that, embrace it as part of the process, whereas the veterans, they've been through it before, they can lean on that experience. So Nashville very much feels like the Avs in 2017-18, maybe. A team that squeaks into the playoffs, is looking to make some noise.
Has to use a third-string goaltender.
And it's exact opposites, right? Mm-hmm. Because the Avs played Nashville in that series. But, I think another thing the Avs have done well is they really shut down Matt Duchene in the second game. Mm-hmm. I didn't notice much from him. I commented at one point, we didn't really hear many boos or Duchene sucks chants in game 2, and that's largely because he didn't seem to have the puck a lot on his stick. And I have to say, another guy I noticed a lot, and not for the right reasons, was Ryan Johansson, and I just thought he had a terrible game 2, just really bad. And I saw him a lot, and so it was a guy that kept popping up, who made that bad play? 92. Who made that bad play? 92. Mm-hmm. What is he doing? 92.
I think you look at game 1, And you just feel that Nashville approached it with the wrong mindset, right? They said, we're the physical team. We're going to come out here and bully this Avalanche squad, and we're just going to do everything we can to hit them. And they just tried too hard to do it that it took them off their game. They weren't focused on playing hockey. They were just focused on hitting. With Ryan Johansson, I think he never shifted gears. He's still in that game one mindset. He's trying harder to muck it up and get in people's faces and getting those post-whistle scrums than he is trying to make plays. So I'm 100% with you on the Ryan Johansson take. As far as the mindset, I think it's interesting you point that out because that's definitely something that stood out to me from Colorado, right? And we heard it come out of Nathan McKinnon's mouth. It was reminiscent of the Patrick Waugh days, right? What's the term? Even keel, right? How many times did we hear that during Patrick Waugh's era? How many times have we already heard that this playoffs? I think that's really an emphasis for Colorado, and you can tell, you can see it, you can feel it. They're just focused, they're even keel, because like you said, they've been through it. They have those calluses, they have those scars, they've done it. They know not that right now is way too early to even get even a little bit high on yourself. You got a long way to go before this mission is done.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think the Avs have what it takes. We talked to Nazem Kadri yesterday on the optional practice day, and he just mentioned the mentality of the team, and that's something that's different, over years past, and learning from what he called devastating losses, right? To bounce back and be a much stronger and group-oriented team. And I have to say, I wrote this in my column for Colorado Hockey Now, but sitting there watching these players talk and watching their body language and their behavior, I've never seen them actually so focused and committed to winning. Like, I know being around the team, you hear a lot of the right words, but you don't necessarily see the actions or the demeanor to back that up. And this is the first time I feel like I've really seen that from these guys.
Yeah, I'm with that. You mentioned the Predators goaltending. Obviously, that was a storyline heading into the series. Became even more of a storyline when David Riddick gets pulled from game one, and suddenly Connor Ingram, who today will be his third playoff game, which ties his regular season game count. So this guy has played 6 total NHL games, and here he is posing a threat to Colorado, right? I mean, he was really the guy that stole the show in game 2. He was really the talking point, had an amazing game. And I heard Jeff Merrick bring this up on his show, how entertaining of a game that was, despite the low score, right? There were opportunities, and with the opportunities, there were saves, and all of that was Connor Ingram.
You know what I have to say, and I have to back up Greg Wyshynski on this one? That game was not bland, and the reason why is because there was drama to it. It wasn't the Avalanche just steamrolling. Like if you're an Avalanche fan, you enjoyed the hell out of game 1, right? But if you're a member of the media, if you're somebody who is forced to cover this game, if you're somebody just casually watching, wasn't super entertaining after that first onslaught, right? It's just a beatdown, and then everybody has to sit there for another 50 minutes of this game waiting for it to end, right? So as a fan, yeah, you want to see all the goals and you want to blow the Predators out and suddenly everybody's public enemy number 1, but on a enjoyability meter, on a drama meter, like game 2 was where it was at.
Yeah, it had a little bit of everything. It had the little hits, a little bit less than game 1, but it had the hits. And it had the chances, it had the saves, and, of course, the overtime goal was magic. What about, I guess I have 2 directions I could take this. You tell me which one you want to go to. With that, I wanted to talk about the vibe in Ball Arena these last couple of days. Definitely been elevated, or what Gabe Landeskog brings to the table. Choose your own
Let's talk about
adventure.
the vibe. It was so loud at game 2. Like, game 1 was loud, but game 2 was much louder. At one point, they had the decibel meter out. It hit 113 before it just, stopped working. But I remember, audibly being a little bothered by just how loud it was.
I'm never bothered by loud noises. Never. I love my music loud. I'm the guy at the stoplight vibrating everybody else's car with my subwoofer. I'm the guy that likes to stand next to the speaker at a concert. That crowd hurt my ears in game 2. I was in discomfort. I was like, all right, I can't wait for these cheers to stop because my ears hurt.
Yeah, I said this. I saw the Foo Fighters there in 2005. Weezer was the opener. It was the Best of You tour, and they came out, and they were so loud when the Foo Fighters, when they first came out, all you could hear was static. You couldn't interpret what the sound was. It was just noise. And I felt like the crowd at Ball Arena was very close to that level of just noise and loudness.
and engagement, right? I mean, there was a moment where I think it was a killed penalty, and the crowd erupted as if it was a goal. And I'm like, this crowd is so engaged that they're into a penalty kill, and not only that, they cheered really loud for that killed penalty, and then it went back to being focused on the game at hand, right?
I think too, every time that like the top line, anytime Landeskog, McKinnon, or Rantanen had the puck skating up just through the neutral zone, like the crowd just had that buzz. They'd start cheering and screaming. You're like, the guy is at center ice with the puck. He hasn't even done anything.
Or they're
cheering.
There was a moment late where Val Nichushkin was rushing towards the net, and the entire crowd was like screaming. I was like, he's not even close to shooting yet, let alone scoring. You guys are just waiting to turn the corner and expect a goal here. So
he said rushing toward the net, pun intended.
Obviously not intended. I'm not that smart. But let's look at tonight, Ryan.
Let's do
your
it.
thoughts for tonight. I'll start first. I think the Avalanche take this one again, and I don't think it's going to be close. I think this one's going to be like another 5-2, maybe 4-1, something along those lines. I just think the Nashville Predators are now deflated. You look back at that game 2, and you look back at the 5-on-3 that the Predators had. What was it, to start the third period? And it got killed. I think that was it. I think that was their last chance to make some noise in this series. That was their last chance to steal a game, and I think the deflation that they experienced in that overtime goal from Cale Makar was it. That was the nail in the coffin. I don't think they're going to be able to overcome that hump. I see a sweep.
Oh,
Avs in 4.
Heard it here first. I think it would be easy to say that the Avs go in there, get business done, come out, have a week off until whatever other series ends. But I think Nashville is putting the blocks together to be able to compete. I don't know if they'll get there. It's hard for me to say here in Game 3. I think it's a possibility. Like I said, if they stay out of the penalty box, if Connor Ingram maintains that capability, he had a really telling quote post-game where he said, the goal that went in, Makar's goal, was the first goal I didn't get eyes on before it got to me. So if the Avs want to win, they're going to have to really take his eyes away, not let him see everything. And yeah, you mentioned his inexperience, but I think when the team is playing well, it makes his job a lot easier. And so Nashville's playing in front of a friendly crowd. It's going to be loud. It's going to be orange, gold, whatever, yellow. That's the color. And I think that they may be able to pull this one off, but I'm not committed to like putting money on it. I mean, I bet on the app.
Yeah, I mean, you drew the comparison of the 27-18 Avalanche to this Predators team. I think you're spot on. And with that, they have years to go before they're really a contender. I mean, remember going into this season, they were trying to sell half of their team to the Seattle Kraken. They didn't even expect themselves to be this far. And here they are in the playoffs. They're going to continue to take steps, but this year's just simply not their year. So yeah, that'll do it. We'll be right back with Nick Cotsonika, columnist of the NHL.com from Nashville. He's going to help us break down this game more. Only 2 hours away till puck drop. So I know I'm excited. I know you're excited. Let's see what Nick Cotsonika brings and how excited he is. So that'll do it for this portion of the hockey show right here on My High Sports. JJ Jerez, Danny Bailey, Ryan Bolding.
Let's go, Colorado!
And we're back. Colorado's biggest and best live hockey radio show. This is the hockey show right here on My High Sports. JJ Jerez, Ryan Bolding. We're heading to the phones. NHL columnist Nick Cotsonika. Not only that, he's been sitting next to us in the press box throughout Game 1 and 2. We've gotten to know him, gotten to get his opinions, his thoughts. Nick, thanks so much for hanging out with us. How's the energy? How's the vibe down in Nashville right now from the fans?
Oh, the vibe's always good in Nashville. Broadway, they come ready to party. It's a weekend here. There's lots of hockey jerseys around, and I'm crossing the street with a guy on the way to the rink, and he's wearing a Predators jersey, and I said, well, how you feel? They're going to win? He goes, we better. So I think there's anticipation, but it's nervous anticipation based on the way the first two games went.
Yeah, definitely a make-or-break day here coming up. So with that, I guess let's look at the lineup changes, right? We heard yesterday that UC Saros is definitely out for today. But with that, we also saw a couple pieces go out of the lineup from Game 1 and a couple guys slot in for Game 2. And, of course, it brought a different feel in the two games. So I guess what's the latest in terms of who's playing, who's not, and what do you expect the Predators to really come out of the gate with here?
Well, Ingram is going to start for Nashville. I think that's the number one thing. And, why wouldn't he? He played great the first two games. See if he can rekindle that magic here at home. have the home crowd behind him. As far as Colorado, Jared Bednar spoke just a few minutes ago, and he said Cogliano is getting there, but he did not commit to any lineup changes. So we'll have to see when they come out for warm-up. But, in all honesty, I don't think any of the lineup changes are going to be the difference maker right now. I think it's a matter of, how the teams play and whether Nashville can make yet another leap in how it plays, right? The Predators are better from Game 1 to Game 2, and they need to improve at that rate or more to win in Game 3.
Nick, first of all, I'm jealous that you get an afternoon game down in Nashville where we get the semi almost bottom of the barrel late starts here in Denver. But I haven't had a chance to read your 3 keys yet, but we had a conversation about how it seems like they're the same every night. Do you feel like anything has changed in the keys for Nashville to have success here?
Well, for Nashville, to me, is when they don't have the puck, they need to be more aggressive. They need to be on their toes. Really go at the Avalanche, better forecheck, more aggressive in the neutral zone. They can't just, be on their heels and tentative against a really good, fast team. Like, try to stop them before they get started. When they do have the puck, though, I think they need to be patient. I think they're a little jittery with it. They know the Avalanche are fast, and they're struggling to get out of their end, and they're struggling to put passes together. So they need to, take their time just a split second more, make a good pass, get out of their end, and get on the attack.
With that, I just spent the last segment kind of talking about how that overtime goal really seemed to deflate the Nashville Predators. It kind of felt, I watched them get off the ice. I watched them slowly with, bent at the waist, knees on their stick, kind of just seem mentally deflated. How do you feel they're going to bounce back? Do you think they're in the right state mentally, or do you think that maybe they just feel a bit defeated at this point?
Well, that's tough to gauge. I mean, I think that anytime you lose in the playoffs, it's a tough loss. I think they gave a hard effort. They defended hard. I also think they were tired. I mean, they spent a lot of that game chasing, really from, maybe the middle of the first period, end of the first period on. And the Avalanche just dominated them territorially. And when you don't have the puck, it's a hard game to play, right? They blocked a lot of shots. They defended hard. And eventually they broke, right? But they're coming home. They'll have the crowd behind them. I think they want a good start. And if they can get a lead, which they haven't had in this series, they'll feel better about themselves. So, I'm not one to read teams' minds. Just have to see how the game goes. And I do think the first goal tonight could give them a big lift if they can get it.
Yeah, I think, too, Nick, I'm curious your thoughts on, now that you've seen 2 games of this Avalanche iteration real up close and personal this season, what your impressions of them are, and what is it about them that makes them, as dominant as they seem?
Well, none of this will surprise you, having watched the Avalanche a lot. I mean, what is impressive is just their speed and skill level. And I think if you look at the numbers, 5-on-5, they've had 2/3 of the shot attempts in this series. I think they lead the league in that. So they've been the most dominant team territorially in their series in the NHL, right? So they're a tough team to play against because they're so fast, they're so skilled. They've got so many guys who can put the puck in the net, and now that they're fully healthy, they're deep, right? So, and their top players have played well. Cale Makar's been outstanding. I think Nate McKinnon's been outstanding. Landeskog had a great game 1. Maybe he had a little rust in game 2, but he's going to get there. Nichushkin's a beast. They just go down the list, right? So we all know what makes them great. They just got to play their game, play it well, and the odds are on their side.
Yeah. This is the Hockey Show. We're talking to NHL's Nick Cotsonika. Of course, we got Makar making magic, Nathan McKinnon putting up points, but one guy that I think you failed to mention there was Darcy Kemper, right? We know two wins. He's playing well, but he was also one of the question marks going into the season. He was one of the question marks halfway through the season, and something that made a lot of Avs fans nervous possibly headed into the playoffs. Knowing what you've seen from him in years past, what are you seeing out of the Darcy Kemper you saw in games 1 and 2?
Well, honestly, the only question mark for Kemper for me is just, can he stay healthy? I think when he's been healthy, he's been an elite goaltender. I look in Arizona that one year, like, to me, halfway through the year, he was probably the leading candidate for the Vezina, and then he got hurt. I think when he's been healthy, he's elite, and his numbers were really good this season. No, I haven't talked about it much because they haven't had to rely on him yet.
Mm-hmm.
But even in that 7-2 Game 1 win, in the first period, he made a spectacular save, dive into his left, get his left arm on a puck. And that goes unnoticed because of the way the game went. But I think he's very good. I think he's certainly capable of winning a Stanley Cup with this group in front of him if he's healthy and on his game.
I think, everybody knows the playoffs are kind of a get in and anything can happen kind of situation, right? We've seen, 8 seeds upset 1 seeds plenty. But do you think that Nashville has what it takes to overcome this Avalanche team? I mean, from this point forward, if this series were to go any longer than 4?
I mean, I have a hard time, if we're being honest, I have a hard time seeing them win 4 out of the next 5 games. I don't see it happening. But stranger things have happened. And the thing about hockey is you don't know who's going to get hurt. You don't know how the puck's going to bounce. Crazy things happen. So, we just talked about how the Avalanche dominated most of Game 2. But the Predators hit a post, I think, in the third period, and that puck goes in. It's a different series right now. Mm-hmm. So, look, if you look at my picks, you realize how terrible I am at predicting. So I'm not gonna do that here.
What was I gonna get to? I completely
Nick, I
forgot.
wanted to ask. I know the game hasn't started yet, but just how is the what is the press box situation? How is the vibe? What is everything at Bridgestone like compared to your experience at Ball Arena for games 1 and 2?
Well, I haven't been up there yet today, but I've covered a lot of playoff games in this building, and it's one of my favorite buildings to be in. I mean, I think the great thing about the NHL is there's different flavors, right? And there are certain buildings where you close your eyes and you know where you are, right? I think Montreal's one because of the French and the history and the pageantry there. Vegas is Vegas. In Nashville, you close your eyes, you could be nowhere else. And it's not just the country music and the live music. It's the crowd. I mean, the way the crowd cheers, the way it chants. There's some chants here you don't hear anywhere else in the league. It's a great building, especially in the playoffs, and I expect it to be a lot of fun today.
Sorry for forgetting my question. I was listening to you, and I forgot completely what I was going to say, but here it is. Now that you've been, you got to watch the first games in person, and I know you're no stranger to the Avalanche. We all know how good they were all season, and we all watch hockey all the time. But is there anything you noticed about this Avalanche team that perhaps you weren't anticipating, something that you got to see live that you said, wow, I never noticed that on TV. This is what makes them such a weapon?
Not necessarily, but I do think when you watch them live, you appreciate the speed and skill that much more, right? Like you were sitting next to me, there were certain players where I'm just like, because of what McCarr can do and what McKinnon can do, especially those two. But other players, like Taves jumping up in the rush, just little things like that. But, I think we know what the Avalanche are, and it's just a matter of them playing to their identity and their full ability.
The last thing I want to touch on is Nazem Kadri is obviously makes a big impact on this team. The Avalanche struggled without him last year. He recently wrote a Players Tribune article. You wrote a column about him. We got to talk to him yesterday. And something that stuck out to me, I don't know if you had the same view on it, but I asked him about changing the perception of himself. We've heard Jared Bednar talk about how hard he worked to become a player that's not considered what he was before. And he essentially said it's mostly the perception of the fans and the media and not necessarily anything that he's done on the ice. Do you think that's totally accurate, or do you think just visually that some things have changed from where he was before?
Well, technically he's right. The perception of him is somebody else, right? Like he can't control other people's perceptions in a way, so he's right on that. But the only way to change perception is to stay disciplined and stay out of the box and not get suspended. I mean, look, like, say what you want. The guy's been suspended 3 times in the playoffs, and I would say the Maple Leafs would tell you that his suspension, at least one of them, cost him a series. I think you could argue his suspension last year cost the Avalanche the second-round series. I think if they have Nazem Kadri healthy and in a lineup and productive, maybe they don't blow a 2-0 lead to Vegas. So say what you want, he got suspended 3 times in the playoffs. He needs to stay in the lineup. He needs to be the player he can be, and then he can be a big reason things are different this year. I mean, if you look at it, like where would the Avalanche be last year with Nazem Kadri? right? So he's in the lineup this year. Stay in the lineup, play well, and then I think that'll go a long way to changing perceptions the way he wants.
Last one for me, and then we'll let you go about your day and enjoy the game at Bridgestone Arena. Looking around, I know you're focused on Nashville, Colorado right now, but 6 days into the playoffs now, looking around, what's been the biggest surprise or biggest treat that you've seen so far in the playoffs?
I think the biggest surprise for me is so many lopsided games. This is a league that's really defined by parity. It's a very competitive league. More so than just lots of goals. There's been a lot of lopsided playoff games, which you don't see a lot. We saw one in this series, but it's not just this series. Had 8-2 games with the Oilers and Kings and just some other games that were not close. So I think, it'll be something to watch, whether that's a trend or not. I don't know. It's early yet. But that's, to me, been the biggest surprise around the league.
Absolutely. Definitely something we pointed out here at the top of the show. So thanks so much for taking the time. Very generous of you. And hopefully we don't see you back for Game 5, and maybe we just see you next round. But we'll see how it plays out here.
I'll be back one way or the other.
All right.
Good talking to you guys, and see you soon.
See you soon, Nick.
Thanks so much. There you have it. Nick Cotsonika, NHL.com. And just a real hockey guy, right? Getting to sit with him. We've heard his comments, his thoughts, and he knows the game. He knows the X's and O's. So obviously a treat to get to talk to him.
Yeah, I always appreciate the opportunity to learn from somebody who has, varied experience, but also, he sees a lot of hockey that we don't up close and personal. And so it has an additional insight. You don't want to just get stuck in the Avalanche bubble echo chamber out here. You want experience outside of what's happening.
Kind of the reason we do this hockey show, right? To kind of separate us from purely Colorado Avalanche hockey and get to talk all things. But today's about the Avalanche. What is it? An hour, 15 minutes away. Puck drop, Game 3. Pivotal Game 3. So we'll see how that pans out. But we got one more segment left to go here, the Mixed Bag Skate, where we get to have a little fun, relax, and prepare our descent for the day. So stick around through the break. We'll be right back here on the Hockey Show. JJ Jerez, Ryan Boulding, Danny Bailey, Mile High Sports.
I play hockey and I fornicate because those are the two most fun things in cold weather.
Welcome back. It's the Hockey Show. Live on air every Saturday at noon right here on Mile High Sports. Danny Bailey, hit me with the channel number real fast.
98.1 FM or 107.5 HD3 if your car's got one of those fancy HD radios.
The newfangled radios. Can we just comment for a moment how Sam Girard said that the song that makes him want to run through a brick wall is this song? This song's like a jam, It's a foot tapper. It gets you moving, but it doesn't get me amped up I'm about to Kool-Aid Man through the wall. Oh, yeah! In French, Canadian.
Kool-Aid Man through the wall. You saw Yakov Trenin and his celebration. It looked like he was trying to do
epic.
Something similar.
Epic.
That was ridiculous.
Jumped face first into the glass after he scored.
Yeah, usually when you do that celebration, you check it, right? You jump in with your shoulder and you make it look cool. He had no grace to it about
it.
It
must have been a fan or somebody really annoying. The replay, the dude sitting right there was not thrilled about the whole situation.
Yep, exactly.
Maybe there was a bunch of beers on the boards and he was just like, watch, I'm going to take them all out.
So we've got a number of topics to get to here, starting with press box gift packages. This was your topic, so I'm going to let you intro this one, and we'll play it from there.
It's a late ad. I'm just seeing videos and pictures of all the Avs media getting these little goodie bags from the Nashville PR staff. They got wet wipes. They got little shooters of Jack Daniels. They got cool stuff as gifts, and we get chocolate-covered pretzels.
Yeah, and bottled water. Cold, at least it's
canned,
cold. I'm always surprised at
canned water.
How cold. Yeah, you're right. Canned aluminum bottles, but always cold.
They
always
got
so
emergency for immune support chapstick. Step up your game, Colorado.
And please quit hitting us with so many desserts. They've actually had fruit.
No,
out
here's
lately.
Here's the biggest change. Forget the desserts thing. No more oatmeal raisin cookies. Nobody likes those. It's just Peter Baugh. I ran into Mark Rycroft and I was like, Mark, did you grab one of those oatmeal? Are you an oatmeal raisin cookie guy? I was doing an informal poll. I said, Riker, are you an oatmeal raisin cookie guy? And he goes, no, but I ate one, which is exactly how you feel about oatmeal raisin cookies. I don't like them, but if I'm desperate for sugar, I'll eat one.
Right. And then, of course, we've got the health scanner, right, on my phone. We scanned all the desserts, and turns out Oreos are the most healthy cookie of the ones that they're giving us. So, maybe just less cookies. I'm not trying to get fat.
I'm pretty sure they gave D-Mac a tape measure in
For what?
his press box gift. A tape measure.
I wonder why, though. What does he need to measure?
I mean, there's so many jokes here. We might as well just move on.
All right, Ryan, that brings me to let me know when you were between the ages of 16 and 23.
Oh, boy.
And somebody handed you $600. What are some of the things you would have done with that $600? Keeping in mind this is live radio, keep it PG for us.
All things legal. 16 to what?
16 to 23.
$600. Somebody hands me $600. Oh man. I mean, on the 16-year-old spectrum, maybe
You think you're rich at that point.
yeah. I mean, I'm probably buying some music, some Pennywise albums, some Tool, maybe a Perfect Circle. Maybe I pick up an eighth and go home and listen to some Pink Floyd. And as you get older, maybe that turns into something nicer than Coors Light or Natty Ice for a beverage. But yeah, I would feel rich. I mean, now I'd probably just use it to pay off debt. Which
Okay.
is sad.
Now imagine,
Wah, wah.
again, same scenario. You're 16 to 23, and somebody hands you the keys to a $600 million franchise. Then what do you do, right? I mean, my point...
I probably look like whoever is the youngest Bolin. What's his name? Johnny Bolin?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would probably just turn into that disaster.
Right, and that's exactly the situation going on in Ottawa. As Eugene Melnick passed away towards the end of the season, the heiresses of the Ottawa Senators is going to his two daughters, one of which is 16, the other one is 23. They will now be in control and be the decision makers on what happens to the Ottawa Senators. Of course, they could either sell it and cash out on that $600 million, or keep the dream alive and keep running it within the family. So it's kind of wild that they're that age taking control of an entire franchise. But man, am I jealous. Wouldn't that be awesome?
I mean, that's what you do, right? When you're that age, you just run sports industries.
So do you run it or do you sell it?
Oh, I'd run it.
Yeah. Run it into the ground probably.
I would like to think I would be smart enough to hire somebody who would do it exceptionally well. But I would probably, I would vision myself as a Dr. Jerry Buss from Winning Time, and I would probably be more like, everyone's perception of the Cronkies for the last 18 years.
I don't know. I see you being more sinister, like from Major League, right? The owner that just tries to drive the franchise into the ground so that she can sell it to another city and cash out on it. I feel like
God, it's so good. The scene where they get rid of the plane and give a busted-ass bus is one of the best in the whole movie.
I haven't seen that since I was, at least 10. So my sense of humor's changed so much. I bet you I would enjoy it so much more.
I'm surprised you've even seen it. Let's be honest.
Hey, I've seen funny movies. I've seen the funny ones. Looking at penalties and suspensions, I guess, were you thrown back a little bit? That game one, that first night of the playoffs, we saw about 3 or 4 suspensions and fines. We saw a lot of penalties going across the league, right? I know there's a lot of people. It seems to be a strange argument now. Nobody seems to be on the same page. Some people say, oh, well, in the playoffs, the refs put their whistles away. Other people say, oh, in the playoffs, the players become more disciplined. Or others are saying in the playoffs, nothing changes. It's pretty much the same across the board. So I guess what's your take on the day one slew of fines and the I guess, uptick in penalties, it feels like?
I think two things. There's a perception that the calls are fewer and farther between in the postseason, and I think statistically that's been proven to be a fallacy. And then I would say the outspoken nature of that perception and it coming to light and the conversation around always that the refs swallow their whistles in the playoffs is not the same game. The officials are probably on notice. The league has a heightened awareness. I think they're trying to say, we're not going to let you get away with these shenanigans.
It's just hard because it's tough for them to be consistent, because if they were to do that throughout the game, there would be way too many penalties, right? And I think that's where it really is tough, because, yes, they're disciplined, but at the same time, they're playing their hardest, and they're playing with an extra edge of meanness to them.
Yeah.
That there's going to be naturally more penalties. So if you swallow the whistles, or if you don't try to swallow the whistles, you're in the wrong.
Oh, and officials are human beings, too. They can't see everything. I think, sometimes there was a potential interference call where somebody went through Lekkonen's legs or whatever in game 2. I don't really remember, but nobody was looking when it happened. And you can't just immediately call a penalty because you see a guy laying on the ice. You just can't do it. So they're human. They've got to make human decisions, split-second decisions, and see the game in a way that you as a fan maybe aren't watching. And so that's what informs it. But, it's not going to be perfect, and you don't want it to be perfect. That's the human element of it.
And there's nothing better when, in between periods, neither team is the first to be on the ice. It's always the referees, right? So I love when the referees hit the ice and the crowd just hits them with an ocean of boos.
I'm a long-time official hater.
Me too.
I love the chants, the cheers, the boos. I love the blind ref costumes. I love all of it. But I do feel like there have been a lot of whiny fans in the last 2 games about calls or non-calls where you're like, how do you boo? How do you boo this situation? I don't understand.
I feel like I've heard you say that exact phrase about 4 times already in the in the
I'm
2
just
games.
like, that's such a blatant penalty on the Avs. I don't know how you boo it.
Finally, the Nashville Predators did everything they can to keep Colorado Avalanche fans out of the building. They made it a regional. You have to have a Nashville, Kentucky, or somewhere around there address to buy the tickets. Your thought on the matter? I think it's a great attempt, valiant attempt from the Nashville Predators, but in this day and age, it's just not possible.
Somebody refreshed my memory on Twitter with this. I was pretty sure this policy has been in place for years now, and they refreshed my memory. It came down to the Blackhawks Predators playoff series, and it was to keep Blackhawks fans out, but it's not surprising. So the fact that it comes up every year and everybody's like, oh, I'm outraged. It's like, well, this has existed for a long time. You just forget because you don't care. Who cares? I mean, I had Avs fans tweet me they bought tickets, and I said, tell me if your tickets get canceled, and I have not heard from those people.
Yeah, especially with the secondary market these days.
Yeah, I said it's probably going to make more money for secondary market sellers because they can sell them to whoever they want. Plus, let's not pretend that organizations, arenas, the event holders aren't selling a huge portion of tickets to secondary market sellers anyway.
This might just be my natural mind of defiance that I've always had in my life, but I see something like that, and if I'm an Avs fan, I consider that a challenge. Like, hey, watch me get into your building.
I will buy a house in Nashville just so I can buy tickets to this game, and then I'll flip it for more money and screw the person who bought it from me just so I can go as a FU to the Predators.
I love the idea. Well, that's all we have for today's edition of the Hockey Show, Round 1 Playoff Edition. By the time we come back next week, next Saturday, 12 to 1, like we are every Saturday.
Assuming
but also
there's
you can
not
catch
a game.
I know. I'm just saying there's a chance that the round 1 is already over for Colorado. But
there could be a round 2 game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really? Already?
Who knows?
I mean, considering we're waiting for Calgary and Dallas.
I don't know, man. What if they're trying to hurry to get this all done?
Well, either way, I was trying to make the point.
We'll probably be here.
That you can
Unless
catch us.
JJ has a wedding or something else that comes up.
You can catch us live. You can catch us on YouTube. You can catch us on all podcast providers. You can catch us live on Twitter and on Twitch. That's what I was trying to get to.
You did a good job of staying focused through
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I appreciated it.
And yes, I was at a wedding last week. Coach Gwozdecki was there, friend of the show. That was nice. And, of course, the head guy at Dog Nation, Marty Richardson. So, nice little hockey wedding, but I got a couple more this week. I'm just of that age. All my friends are getting married, so sorry. But, only so much I can do. We'll be back next week. More Hockey Show for you, playoff edition. Enjoy tonight's game. Let's see how the Avalanche do. And, thank you, Danny. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, JJ. And thank you, all you listeners. We'll be back. Sweep.
Oh,
Avs in 4.
Heard it here first.